Greetings. What if your guilt around money isn't personal, but inherited? What if liberation isn't about earning more, but becoming whole in your relationship with wealth? Let's talk about it. I'm here with my guest, Mary Julia Cordero. Greetings, Mary.
Hello, how are you, Selena?
I am well. Thank you for being here. So let's get into it. I love this. We're talking about wealth and money. Oh, yeah. Mary, how do you show up in the world?
That's a big question.
Is it?
Can you tell me more about what you mean when you say that?
What do you think I mean when I say that?
Here we go. I'll start by saying the opening line. I find myself in a lot of I find myself really blessed in the mystery of money. I would say it's something that I stepped into. It's probably been about 2 years now, where I was previously, I think, had a really easy perspective of money, which was that it was bad, and to not have money somehow made me not bad.
Mm,
And I would say I lived most of my life like that. I'm 48 now. I had a really nice wake up call. It actually wasn't nice at all. It was quite horrible, but it was a wake up call because I needed to be woken up. And I would say that pushed me into the mystery of money, and that it feels I I love that your coaching is called DisruptHer, because it there's something that's so enticing about how dangerous money is. This
mhm.
thing that we don't want to talk about, makes people uncomfortable. And it was very enticing to me. Like,
Yes.
when I started to flip my own script of like, what's going on in here that's making people so uncomfortable?
Mm,
Um, yeah, and so I would say that since I made that own transition to like really start looking at what my inherited patterns were, it's really exploded into just being able to see a lot more about money than most people are attuned to seeing, because I'm paying attention to how money's moving. Um and I think the thing I want to share about that is that I come from, like, my socioeconomic position is, one thing is, like, I mean, we have our family stories, and my mom and my dad were different social classes, and I grew up with this ultimately with a single mom who struggled. We never experienced food poverty. Like, there was never is food going to be on the table, but there were certainly like lots of limitations.
mhm.
And when I was in high school, I got a scholarship to a private school, and I think that was like the beginning of me starting to question stuff, because I was on financial aid. Other folks there were paying full tuition. And so it was, it was a reveal, like something was revealed.
Yeah.
Um, right. And it made it very clear what my position was. My social position became very obvious in a way it had not before that moment.
Really?
And absolutely, yeah, because there was a world operating around me that was operating at a level of wealth that I was never in those conversations. And I
Wow.
would say I spent much of my life, rebelling against that, because ultimately it made me feel really small to be
Mm,
in that situation. And I found what I started to uncover 2 years ago was that, like, if I just told myself that people with money were bad, it was protecting me from that young part of me was protected from feeling judged,
wow.
for the little things that I did that were like very off course for people that were at a higher socioeconomic status. So one thing I had to really come to was like, it was like I had the way we make agreements with ourselves that we don't know we've made, but
Yeah.
they're like very clear. And an agreement I had made with myself was that I will never make more than $40,000. And I didn't even know I had made it, but I got to be, like I said, around 46. And it was like, I just looked around and was like, firstly, who am I in solidarity with again? Like, what, who,
Who are you in
what,
solidarity
who
with?
who was I in solidarity with? And it was an unpeeling, of like, oh my gosh, like, I really believed that, like, I was doing good in the world by not making money. And a lot of us carry that. And I think I will like definitely name like the way that intertwined with race, you know, being white and like the seeking of innocence and the seeking of good, you
Mm.
know, and the way that connected with having white skin and like somehow I had convinced myself to not make money and
Wow.
a sort of re-realization of like, I don't think this is the best way to serve the world. So that was a real opening for me. And so from there, I went into financial education and, you know, just like learning a lot about finance and taking a lot of classes. I got my financial professional license and just digging in. And like, it's very man's world, a lot of white men. But like something just kept calling me, you know, it wasn't how I had experienced my life before. That wasn't who I hung out with, so to speak.
Yes.
And I found a group of women that were practicing finance and I got really embedded with them, and things just kept shifting and shifting. And I started with financial education, personal financial education, which is what I do. I sit one-on-one with clients. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic level is. I'll sit with anyone. It's the business model that we're based in is specifically around being accessible. So we do free what we call financial needs analysis for
Mm.
anyone, literally. And so that has its own disruptive quality. And that was really, I think there was a long time when that felt like the right disruption. Like it was like I that enticingness of disruption, you know, of like, oh, this is kind of fun, you know, like, oh, money's dangerous. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it has a lot of power. Like, oh my gosh, look how much power I had over you. Oh my gosh, look how you let your relationship with money define your worth.
Mm.
So I started, you know, as those things started to unpack, and I'm working with this group of women, and I still wasn't making a lot of money. So getting really frustrated, and but you know, which is part of the process of all growth. But
Right.
what I started to notice, like I'm someone who's paying attention to systems, and so what I'm noticing, and this is a very long wind around to answer your first question,
Girl,
but
you are
I'm
fine.
coming
This
back.
is a
I'm coming back.
conversation. I do want to see if you can adjust your mic. I feel you just a tad little low, kind of
It might be. Tell me, is it? It's
little
right
more.
here.
Mm.
Is it? It might be because it was on my jacket. Is that better?
Can you move it closer to your mouth, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. I can take these out too. Is that any better?
Let's take them out and see
No?
how it
Let's take
sounds.
it out. Okay. I'm glad you said that.
Thought we were going to be fine,
Okay.
but as you're getting wound up here now, uh, it's like we need to hear what you got to say. All right, so this is coming around to a
Yeah,
story.
yeah. And so it's so much easier for me to draw out the evolution to explain where I'm at right now
Let's do it.
because I don't it's hard to find the words. I think I'm at a very interesting place that I didn't expect to find myself.
Mm.
So, two things I notice across the system. One is like there is currently more and more infrastructure being built for this concept that folks who have not necessarily had access to income or wealth in their life of this like let's help people that haven't had access to money go get money. And that's a disruptive act because we're disrupting the class system. And there's more and more. Like you and I are in Rachel Rogers' work, like it's based on that. And I find, you know, for women particularly, there's more and more systems that are like women, let's go get our money. Let's go get our money. This is a game changer. What I began to notice is that while that infrastructure is being built, and it's you have to change, you know, there's like it's mindset work is what I would call it, money mindset work. And it's like how you think about yourself and how you hold your worth is showing up in your relationship with money. And the more worth that you understand you came in with, the greater your capacity to attract abundance. So then I just start asking the question like, does that mean that people that have more money than me know their own worth?
Mm. Did you get an answer?
Oh, I mean, I got some of an answer, which is that's not how it works. And so I just began to grow like really interested again. It was like that part of me that turned on when I was like, oh, money's dangerous. Let me explore. I was like, what's going on here? Like what is the gap between we make more money and then we have more money and then what? I mean, I understand what strategically, you know, those of us that are aligned with like tending to the future are like, we're taking care of our financial independence, then we're taking care of like our family and our legacy, and then we're taking care of our collective impact. Like I understand strategically what money is supposed to do, but how
Right.
we feel about money. Because it has been my experience, because I wanted to dig into that question, one of the things I've started to do is go back to people that I went to that high school with, families who I knew were paying a lot of money each year. Because in my mind, for my particular social position,
Right.
these people have more money than me. So I wanted to know, what is your relationship with money? And like, do you just walk around like all the time being like, I'm so worthy, that's how I attract my abundance?
Right.
And that's not the case. It's just not the case. Like, of course it is. It makes sense when you think about it. So it has me like really asking these questions about like, if the map out of this social location is based on knowing our self-worth, what are people telling themselves when they are experiencing whether it's like inherited wealth or income generated wealth or
Right.
whatever puts them in the position of being a wealth holder? What kind of conversations are they having with themselves about their relationship with money?
Did
And
they share?
yes, but not many people, not directly. Um,
Mm.
thing I got a lot was a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of guilt, right? Like, and we all carry guilt. Like I just told you about my story of like, I was like, oh, if I don't make very much money, I'm in solidarity. Like, what? You know, and then having to navigate like I had a story I told myself about like I don't make that much money and I don't drive a very nice car, but like I live in the city of Atlanta and I own a home, for heaven's sake. Like I can't walk around waving some flag of like I'm in solidarity with people who don't have I don't have a lot of money. I'm in solidarity with people who don't have money. Like that's I'm sharing that vulnerably. Like that's very embarrassing to have found that thought operating inside my head and then to see how much it had impacted my life,
Mm.
and my children's life and my family's life and all the people that I consider to be part of my community. So I share that vulnerably because I was like, that feels yuck, you know, to have seen that work. And I was like, oh, that's not the right message. But as I start to dig into more folks that are wealth holders, it's like, oh my God, there's so many messages about money. And it's
Right.
not just to keep people locked in like lower socioeconomic positions. And this is the long part of the story that I'm getting to is to
I'm
start
listening.
to, yeah, to start to uncover like, okay, well, if people that are holding wealth are experiencing guilt and scarcity, where did that come from?
Where
And
did
why
that
is that
come from?
happening? So that was like starting to break down, and it was like really getting to literally no matter where you are on the socioeconomic spectrum, for the most part, we are operating with money based on scarcity and guilt. And that is a symptom of a system that's working really, really well.
It is. How so? How does that how do you come to that?
So the piece I started digging into, a lot of conversations, some of which were incredibly uncomfortable because I'm like, I want to talk about money. And I'm thinking, I'm coming in like, you have money, you probably talk about money, let's talk about money. And it was like, no, a lot of people who I, because I work with, so like I work with people in finance, like people open up their like very vulnerable financial life to me. And I get to see the insides of like how people's finances work. And I get this
Like
incredible
seeing
privilege.
their underwear.
It is like seeing their dirty underwear because all those numbers like carry stories like the story I just told about myself. You know, they carry like what we inherited from our parents, what we're scared to do, what we're not paying attention to because it's too scary to look at. You know, it connects to like a wound and it's inherited from generations and generations, you know, and it depends on you know how and where you culturally grow up is informing that. Like so much stuff is informing that,
Mhm.
but what's not informing it across the board generally is like our own choice.
Mm.
And the reason that that became important to me is because I started to ask the question, and this is the question that I don't have the answer to, and I may never, and that's okay. But it has become very, again, like it's lit up again as like, oh, you might be disrupting something with this question because my question is this. I believe very firmly in using let me reframe that word because I actually don't even like to say using money. I believe very firmly in co-creating with money to create collective care. I'm very clear about that.
Oh,
I don't, it's not that I have like, you know, a handbook with a framework and the, you know, like here's exactly how we do that. I think we try to do that in lots of ways, and some of them work, some of them don't. We have mutual aid, you know, is like becoming a big thing. Land back, reparations. There's these systems and strategies that people are trying on to be like, how can we recirculate wealth differently? And what became very clear to me is that folks that are holding wealth, firstly, there's obviously so many different kinds of people. There is folks who are liberal. I think put that in quotes maybe. You know, folks who are more liberally inclined.
meaning they're generous, or what do we mean?
No, they're not that they're not generous. That's not to say that or not. It's that let me back up to say if we moved in our relationship with money from a place of calm, if we were able to take off our inherited beliefs of shame and guilt, which are, I think those are beautiful emotions, like those are part of being human, but we
Yeah.
outsource them. We outsource them to systems of domination all day long. We in all our micro choices. Um, and money is a player in that outsourcing. It's not that we outsource money, it's that we outsource the emotional experience we have in all of our micro transactions with money. The stuff that comes up, the weight it feels, the heaviness of it, the process of like seeking to be in an expanded relationship of money to create abundance, to
Yeah.
disrupt the system. So point being that like there's this infrastructure that's starting to build for folks that want to disrupt at lower socioeconomic levels. At higher socioeconomic levels, the thing that I began finding was like, first thing I was finding was that there were several people that were like, I'm not a wealth holder. I don't have money. And I was like, I know damn well that if you have a house in this city and both of your kids are in private school, that like it's safe for you to say, I have some measure of money, but that system was like still playing. So there's folks that are like in denial, and it's probably a very similar story of mine of like if I had money, if I made more than $40,000, I would be a bad person, right? Like that's at play. So then there's an inner tension, you know, that's like I shouldn't have money, but I do have money, but I don't want anyone to know that I have money, and I would never identify. Like all this stuff is happening, and the question at that particular level is like if you could pull all that stuff away and like actually chill out, I think it's very possible that you would move your money differently because you wouldn't be having the whole story led by scarcity or guilt or should. I think there's a liberal population, like I was saying, that isn't generous with their wealth, but there are prescriptions of what generosity looks like.
Yeah.
It's called philanthropy or charity, right? And there's systems like you see the financial advisor. If you can even find a financial advisor that even believes in giving back in the first place, you find someone and then you try to figure out what overflow is, and then you allot a certain part of that money to philanthropy so you get the tax write-off. Like that's a system that's built, but nowhere in that system is anyone asking what is your relationship with money, because once again, if you calmed down your nervous system and we're like, and I don't want to prescribe what anyone should or shouldn't do. That's really important to me. I don't know. That's why I'm leading it with a question. If you calmed down your nervous system, is it possible that even the concept of what is overflow would change? Not that that means you should give away something that is a need or a want, but that is there a way that we can take care of ourselves and other people at the same time? It doesn't have to exclude taking care of ourselves. Is there a new way to experience this resource? Because that's what money is. I don't even think of it as a tool anymore. It's a resource. So the question, it's questions like if if you have inherited wealth, if you walked into this world, like if you were born as a steward of money, how might that change if you could calm your system down and you could pull out everything you had outsourced, if you could pull it back in and be like, that actually belongs to me, that's my guilt, and I get to be in relationship with my guilt and make choices with my guilt in the way that feels good to me. And I say that guilt is it's an emotion that I have a lot of curiosity about. I have a lot of reverence for guilt. And I do, I can like quickly name like that is absolutely connected to whiteness. And that the example of that is like when guilt is running your system as someone living in white skin, then that again is the system doing its job. It's the larger system of domination is doing its job because it's a retractive force it's putting you into should. And there are things that are important for us to hold guilt around, but we have to navigate our own relationship with guilt and who's in the driver's seat, and like how do we bow in reverence to it and say thank you for the ways in which you make me a human,
Right.
instead of like avoiding it, and then all of our actions are based on like I don't want to feel that. And so I think the same thing holds true with money. I mean, I think it's different. Money is a different resource than racial privilege. It's certainly a type of privilege. It's certainly a tool. But my curiosity is really like, I feel like there might be a little more there than just it's a tool and it's a privilege. And those are the kind of questions I'm starting to like really ask and try to dig into.
Right.
So that was the long winding way to get to like, what am I doing in the world right now?
What are you doing in the world right now?
Yeah, and that is, I am developing a group, which God knows, like 2 years ago, I would have been like terrified to even say this out loud, because I think it's like it has there's a cultural perception of it that's not right, and I'm going to have to learn to let people project what they project and be all right with that. I have a really specific interest in working with wealth holders in their relationship with wealth in a group context. So my business partner and I, Erendira Jimenez, and I'll send you their info as well, um, are starting a group called Wealth Work, where we're working specifically with wealth holders. And we're using a system called sense thinking, which is a system of the point is like you could do like financial therapy, or like we could talk about our feelings. I don't really like to do that. I mean, feelings are great, but I don't like that's a long route, right? Like it's a long route to be like, let's go process all these emotions. And I'm curious about something that like just changes our lens. And so sense thinking is this particular modality I have training in. And what it does is it's very difficult to explain. I literally won't be able to explain it. But I'm going to give an example. And that's to say that like it uses the body almost as a communication tool. The idea is that we have learned to live in this world
Yeah.
perceiving our five senses. And we think that those five senses are what make intelligence. Now we all know we have intuition, right? Like I wouldn't be in this room with you if we didn't both know what intuition is. That's a different sense too. So we've added on to the five
Saying
senses.
the senses, because I wrote down to have you spell it, because I thought it might be a play on word with sense. So it's SE thinking, sense thinking, not
Yeah.
CENTS. Okay. So
No, that's a very funny play.
yeah, because I was like, what am I hearing? So I'm going to
I didn't
circle
even
back.
think of that. That's hilarious.
Absolutely. I'm going to circle back to this conversation because the entire time where you were talking about how you show up in the world, you used a lot of words. And I know the audience is probably thinking this, and I'm thinking because I'm curious. When you had the conversation, when you went back to like be curious where you went to school and things like that, you're a white woman having this conversation. So we all see that you're talking to a Black woman. What does that makeup look like of the conversation that you were having where you found shame and guilt? What dynamics culturally was that?
I am so glad you asked that. That's a really fantastic question. And
Mhm.
I will clearly, I mean, I think the answer is obvious, right? Like I'm obviously talking to white women. Those are the folks that I've dug into. I am really like I have a very multiracial context of living. I'm in a multiracial family. Um, and I know plenty of people that are Black folks or people of color that have money. And I will again like vulnerably say like I'm nervous to get into those conversations because the inherited stories and the inherited experiences are so different. And I think also like Black wealth is something that is, it's newer. Not that there aren't a lot of places where Black wealth has been thriving. But there's going to be more just statistically folks that have come into wealth in their lifetime. And which is markedly different than there's a very large number of white folks who are inheriting wealth. And those are two very different relationships with wealth. And they come from two different histories. Um, and so the place where I have started has been with white women. I did speak to one white man, but it very quickly it took a different tone really quick, and it was more categorized, less about healing,
Yeah.
because my question is about money and healing. And I think like Erindira is is a Native Indigenous woman. And it's really important to be partnering with her because there are experiences, not only that I don't have the background to hold, but like I have great capacity for harm based on that.
Absolutely.
You know, and so like wanting to be really mindful of that, like I do firmly believe that like wealth has a meaning in each of our lives, and it's a relationship that we, you know, when our souls walked in, when we chose this life, we chose something about the relationship each of us are in, regardless of our cultural background. But like our cultural background most absolutely informs it, again, because we're operating for money based on inherited patterns, and those patterns we inherit are very different based on cultural context.
Well, I'm curious, and
Yeah.
forgive me if I'm revealing something that you didn't say on live, because we had a good conversation before we were live. You mentioned that you're in Atlanta.
Yeah,
There's a lot of Black wealth in Atlanta.
I know it.
So
Yep.
that it to me sounds like there's a lot of opportunity to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
And you said you're nervous about it. Why? What makes you nervous?
Because my own questioning and wondering is relatively new, and being able to put it into words is relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need a little more firmness in being able to articulate what I'm trying to say, and it's getting more clear, and I'm like so grateful for you to, you know, offer the opportunity to be here articulating, you know.
Well,
Um it's
what do you feel right now? Because we are learning, right? It's
yeah,
progress over perfection.
yeah,
You know you have questions because it's just questions. It's
yeah.
not going to kill anybody. So you can make the offer right now to get the answers for the questions that you have, right? If there are African Americans or if there are other cultures like Latinos that
Mhm.
want to have a further conversation with you, and if you would be open, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what do you think you would say?
Oh, I love your like do it now. Just
Uh,
ask right now. Yeah.
it's a conversation. You
It
want
is. Oh, it's really good.
to we're
Um,
having a conversation.
yeah. I had this really beautiful conversation with this Black woman recently. And I said to her, I was like, you know, one of the like ways to um distill my question is really like, is it possible that money is also an expression of love that is currently being used by the systems of domination so that we can't see what it is? And she was talking to me about Oshun, the goddess from Nigeria, as the goddess of money and love. And and that was like a really beautiful conversation to have. And but the questions, you know, that's like it's like you start talking and it's like your brain is like, oh, wait, this is a different way to see things. You know, the questions are really they're really like tell me about your relationship with wealth. Tell me about what you think of this idea. Like, is it possible to you from your particular social position that there is a healing that could reverberate if we were able to be in what I can now only call like I will say right relationship because that I don't have quite the articulation on it, but like if we had a different relationship with money, um, is it possible? Like, can you see possibilities of how that might disrupt, like have a ripple disruption? Because again, it's a topic we don't talk about socially. And then I would just want to know like how that feels informed by someone's particular like racial positioning or their class positioning. Like I find, you know, I'm having myself in conversations now with, and I have had conversations with two different Black women who are quite wealthy, but I was nervous to dig in. Because and I will, like I'll figure it out, but it is the like wanting to like make sure I got the words right because I'm going into a territory as a white woman. What'd you
Don't
say?
do that. Don't do that. You don't need to get the words right, right? Because it's a conversation. As I looked over, 333 was on the clock.
Yeah.
And I think that's something for abundance, right? And it's curiosity. We all lean into curious. We were talking about that and curiosity. And
Yeah.
if you're in connection and potentially relationship with them,
Mhm.
just asking. They have a right and will say no if they don't want to have that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
I would challenge you in the way that you asked me when we got started, what's in it for you? Because that is probably the answer you need to be prepared to answer, right?
I
The
can answer that
question,
one really well.
right? So when you ask the question, be prepared for the question of
Yeah.
what is in it for you.
Yeah.
That's why I ask you now in that, because we all know if you don't ask the questions to a big enough population, we're leaving some people out of the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I do. I really appreciate your challenge. And I'll say, you know, again, vulnerability, like it points directly to like, oh, like look at you in white skin, terrified to hurt somebody. Like
But
that would
that's yeah, and
it's okay. That's,
is
you know,
that true?
navigate.
Is that true though? Would you
Not
hurt someone?
necessarily.
Because it's
Yeah.
just a conversation
Yeah.
that you're already in a relationship with.
Yeah.
In conversation. At least that's how I hear it.
No, I think you're right. I really appreciate you pointing it out because the story I was telling myself before you said it was, oh, I'm nervous because I want to get the words right. And the story I realized is actually running my system is I'm scared to hurt somebody. And that's a story that keeps me locked up because it might be true and it might not be true.
And
And when I'm in
gives
relationship
you,
with folks, this is part of relationship. Yeah.
absolutely, it gives you, it makes you believe you have power that you really don't have.
Thank you. It sure does. Yeah. It sure does. Yeah.
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 And I say this to you in love to help you. I'm a coach, right?
Yeah.
It's what
Thank
I
you.
do. For you to get to the work, I'm a coach in business, life, and mindset,
I love it.
and money. And to get you where you want to be, you got to ask the questions.
That's the
It's just
question.
a question. Nobody's gonna die.
I know. I have to tell you this other piece I'm sitting with, which is again, because I have so many more questions to ask.
Of course.
When I hear communities of color, and I would say this is true, like I'm like want to make sure I'm using that word well, so I'll be more specific.
Mhm.
And I hear Black folks talk and Puerto Rican folks talk, which are the specific intersections that I am in deep relationship with.
Yeah.
There is a very clear wiring of money is collective care that is not equally wired in folks that are white. And so it's a really different, it's just something I noticed from my particular position. Like obviously that's probably like really obvious to folks that are not white. But what's interesting is that, walking in, seeing that difference because I'm engaging in these micro conversations about money, even if I haven't like all the way come out and ask, like I'm talking about money all the time and I'm watching how people respond.
And they're wondering why you ain't asked.
Probably so. Yeah. And I think it brings up the, as you're talking, like more questions are arising for me.
Of course.
Because what's arising is there is already like collective care is like a defining feature, I assume of like surviving white supremacy in the United States, if you're a person of color.
Talk about it, girl. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Right.
And so so it's a really different set of questions. So like I'm so glad you asked this. So if I'm asking white women who are wealth holders, how might you move your money differently? What might free up if instead of looking at a script of what you should do because you're a good white liberal, what if you tried on something else? What might happen? Because of course, in my mind is like, I hope it turns into collective care. I hope that's what happens. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. There's no map, right? And then, it's a different population of folks who already have that operating in their system, folks that already understand what it means. Like when I get paid, I help my brother. When I get paid, I tend to my family, or I tend to my people, and I tend to my people's wellness.
Let me ask you a question that popped in my head around that. So is your concern that you feel you don't see enough collective care in your own race? Let me say that.
No, I mean, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yes, definitely. But that's not my driver.
Yeah.
It's not my driver.
Yeah.
My driver is let's see.
Take it. Take
No,
it.
I recently had a death in my family of
Yeah.
someone, a kid that I was really
Oh,
close to.
that's so sweet.
Yeah. And you know, grief is the process it is. And I don't get to bypass that, you know. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to welcome how utterly confusing and disabling it is.
Yeah.
And be in reverence to that. And you know, and I will say, you know, he's suicided. And I think that like that's another thing that's really important to talk about. Like I'm not gonna not say that's what happened
Yeah.
because like he couldn't say what was happening for him, you know.
So he made a choice about how he wanted to live or die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want to say that out loud so that there's so much shame around that topic, you know. And mm, uh there is so some of what I'm doing is my own healing.
Yeah.
Of course, that's always what I'm doing, right? I mean, that's funny. Like, of course, I'm doing my own healing. So there's several different pieces I'm coming at. Some of the only some of it is like the exciting feeling of disrupting a system is like I need something. Like I need something to do while I'm here,
Yeah.
you know? And I know I'm gonna be here a long time. And with him gone, it just brings up all those questions of like, what are you here to do? And like I need a purpose. And I also like it's one of the first things that brought me out of stupor. This is
Mhm.
one of the first things I got excited about after he died was like, oh, what if I played in this little area that's dangerous? And I got excited. And I was like, I need to follow that. Um, whether that's, you know, like I'm very clear that like this is work I need to be doing.
Yes.
Um, you know, it comes out of trauma.
Mhm.
Um, but because at some point I had to really ask myself, like, are you responding to trauma? Like, is trauma running the show here? And is that okay with you? Like, there's an amount of time where that has to be okay. And so I had to keep asking myself, is that okay? Are you choosing this? And so it was relatively recently that I was like, now I'm choosing this. Now I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to dig into this work. So the reason I'm here is the excitement of disruption. And then so there's that, there's like, you know, grief, like trying to manage grief with having some excitement, the excitement of disruption, um, uh, the um the feeling of like the world is actively crumbling. I mean, it has been for a long time.
Shit show. Yes.
It's a shit show. I'm like, might as well try something. It's just not like I feel like I have the answer and this is going to save things. It's just like this really like that seems really curious if there's this one thing that is like a really important resource that we're not talking about. And we have, like you brought up, like intersecting racial and cultural identities that are all informing this one thing that no one's talking about, but like billionaires have it. And we think that, like, if we just expand our sense of worth, we'll attract it. But I cannot believe that, like, people that are billionaires are just like inherently have some greater sense of self-worth than I was born in with. Like I won't believe that quite actually. And I don't see that evidence in the folks that I speak with. Um, so it's like a fun thing to untangle while I am here. Did that
And
answer your question?
it feels purposeful, exciting, all
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah.
And
And
you
the white piece is totally in there. Like it's totally like
all the pieces are in
real
there.
interest.
We're
Yeah.
all in this human experience together.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
matter of how far I believe you are willing to go with it. And
Yeah.
we already know, do it scared, do it uncomfortable. That
Absolutely. Yeah.
so having a business, having a movement, having a mission and the dreams and desires that you've been tasked with bringing to life and birthing, it's like birthing a baby. It's like bringing a baby to life. It's scary, all of the things, and it's a matter of if it lights you up enough in both energy, freedom,
Hmm.
uh scared sighted, like they say, all
Yeah.
of those things, then the question is, why not?
Yeah. And you know, hilariously, I've left out a really important part of the story.
Tell us. We want to know.
It's actually very hilarious that I left it out, and I'll have to do some nice introspection about that. I want to make more money. It's right.
Overall.
I want to travel, but like, firstly, I already know making $40,000 is not helping anyone. Like, I have access to networks of people that make a lot of money there. I don't have a good excuse besides guilt was running my show. So like, I have to make more money. Like, that's just a commitment. Like, I have to make more money because
Yeah.
I can have a greater impact with more money, and that's important to me.
Mhm.
And I can also experience a level of ease with more money that I also believe is important to fill my system with ease so that I'm operating from overflow instead of operating from this is what I should be doing. And I think that likely holds true for lots of people. Um, and and yeah, I want to make a lot of money, and I want to travel the journey of like, okay, this is what it feels like to make this amount of money, and I'm partnered. I have a partner. We're dual income. I would never survive in the city of Atlanta. $40,000. We have two kids. We're dual income. I would say, and I like naming numbers. We're at about right now we're at about 100,000. We've made a little bit more before, like maybe up to 120, but we're at 100,000 now, and it is always shocking to like it doesn't feel like we have that much money, and then I'm like, damn, 100,000 is a lot of money, you know? But
Not anymore.
I know
Not
that's
to have impact six figures.
that's
As we
changing.
know, we're in Hello 7 to have the impact and do the things that we want to do and show up in the world, and you not
Yeah.
to be burned out, for you to
Yep.
be able to support your family and have collective care, which you desire. You at least need to be a millionaire.
You got to
That's
be
why we're here.
resourced. That's why
Right.
we're here. I want to be resourced, and I also want the journey of changing socioeconomic statuses because I actually literally want to know what it feels like. And then I want to get to unpack from that perspective. Like right now, I'm unpacking folks that are running like at millions of dollars of net worth. I'm unpacking what's happening for them emotionally. I don't have that experience. And so it's like a wild to be in these conversations with the ones that I've had intimately, and I'm learning the word healing has to accompany it. Like I am talking to people that are wealth holders that are interested in healing. Those two things have to be intersecting. And it's new for me. And those
And I would ask you, I would ask yourself, why is this coming up for you? Right? So that you have the answer. Only you have the answer. No one else has that answer because it's something you're clearly passionate about. You talked to me for about 20 minutes about it. Right?
yeah.
So when you
Yeah, I
when
think
you
it's
figure that out, you will be off into the races. You will not be afraid to ask anybody that question because you got a mission and you got shit to do.
that's exactly how I feel. And,
Yeah.
and I think part of that is, the recovery from grief and
Yeah.
getting that like I know that Christian, that's my godson's name. I know that this new angle is opened by his death.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as like, oh, this is what Christian spirits want me to do. It's not that I feel that way. It's like it allowed a particular opening that
Uh,
opened up, and it's very new to be choosing it. At first it was just a response. And so I don't know that I know the answer to your question yet. I'm finding it, but I am watching myself. Like,
yeah.
I do appear to be real passionate about it.
Absolutely. And that's a great answer. I don't know that I know the answer yet.
Know the answer yet, but I keep showing up for it. Like I know that here's what's interesting is I know the answer really clearly for why I'm involved in like one-on-one consultations for people about financial education. That's like such a clear like
Now, is that just certain people? What does that look like? Because I want you to talk about your offer that you have for the people.
yes.
So
I have I
who
have
are
three
you serving? Mhm.
Yes. I have three offers, and the reason it gets like confusing is because it's shifting. Like we are saying at the beginning, it's like shifting a little bit. Okay, so I have three very distinct offers though. The first one is for folks that I don't want to name a number on it because it depends on your location, but I would say I call it clarity mapping. And that's like getting together. Like one thing that I offer very specifically, I am not a financial advisor. I work very closely with a financial advisor, but financial advisors work in the securities market, and I have no desire to check how the S&P is doing every day. I
Right.
don't care. She does. She's really great at it. Love her. I work very closely with her. What I bring is I sit down with people and we map out What is your income? What are your expenses? What are your assets? What are your liabilities? These are your resources. Now, what are your goals? Okay, I'm going to walk away. We're going to come back together in a week or two, and I'm going to give you a strategy of how I think you can use your resources, the tools that I have access to, and put those things together to point you towards your goals. And that's what I do. But the thing I bring that's so specific is I'm not, is my emotional tenor. I'm very invested in my own emotional intelligence. And so bringing emotional intelligence and emotional tenor into conversations about money is a very different experience for folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was saying is like what I call like my on the spreadsheet work. When I'm on the spreadsheet, like people haven't experienced like just even care around money. Like people come in all the time, and when I do clarity mapping, and that is for folks that do not identify as wealth holders. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic status you're at. If you don't identify as a wealth holder, we're talking about clarity, getting clear about your finances. And the things that come up are, again, guilt, shame, scarcity, running the show, all
How
the
do you
beliefs.
define wealth holder?
That is a really good question. That is a term I have learned through lots of people getting pissed at me, that people need to decide themselves if they're wealth holders.
Oh,
That is for me to decide.
I love that. All
Yeah.
right. So that's offer number one. What's offer number two?
Offer number two is wealth mapping. So again, we're on the spreadsheet. That is for folks that identify as wealth holders. Now we're talking about conversations. It's folks who already have financial advisors or have worked with financial advisors. But now, I said this earlier, like quite often, I mean, I love financial advisors, but their work is accumulation. Their work is, how can I make sure that your money is performing? That is their work.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about your work. What about
my work? I'm using that as a comparison. My work is specifically about mapping, is your money and the way it's functioning aligned with your values and your goals? What are your goals? What are your values? If you've got this asset, in this account, I want you to tell me why you have that asset, what it's doing for you, and how it's aligned. Okay, let's move to your next asset. I want you to tell me why you have that. So it's that kind of like digging in and then creating a map, right? So folks that are holding wealth feel more strategically positioned. My offer is very specifically about money and healing, and it is specifically for wealth holders, because that's the one that's asking the question, could we change something? Like there is potential that, and I don't know, but there is potential that if you are someone that is holding a very large amount of money and you freed up your system to have a different relationship with giving and generosity, that it could have very large impacts. That's a possibility. And so that it's like a lab. Wealth work is like a lab. Folks that want to be in the lab of, I want to connect the word healing to money because I walk in this life as someone that's a wealth holder, and I believe that means something.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that for you, and I love that for them.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I
So
love
I'll start wealth work like this month. I've been doing clarity mapping for a long time. Wealth mapping is new, and that was specifically about like, actually, I want to make more money. Because clarity mapping is like, it's a beautiful service and I love it. And I'm so like you said, you love talking to people and connecting. Like I love clarity mapping, but that's not my cash cow, So I had to do wealth mapping. I had to get like a different network. And so my hope is for wealth work, which is specifically money healing for wealth holders, that like it'll start as a webinar and we'll use that specific modality of sense thinking that is just meant to go faster. Not because urgency, but because we actually don't need to spend 3 years in therapy to figure out why you have the relationship with money that you do.
Ashe. So we've got about 6 minutes, 5 minutes to get you where you need to be.
Yes.
I have 2 questions for you.
Ask me.
If we can get them in. What did the disruptor in you have to disrupt?
What did it have to, is that a did in the past?
The disruptor in you. You love disruption. And maybe we'll skip that one. Where can the people find you?
The people can find me in LinkedIn is the easiest place to find me. LinkedIn, Mary Julia Cordero. It's got the link to my webpage that's like, do you want offer one, clarity mapping, wealth work.
Awesome.
That's the Place to find me.
I love that. And we're going to have the details for y'all in the comments.
Love
And I'm
it.
going to leave you with that question, though. What the disruptor in you have to disrupt, and drop it in the comments for the folks so they'll get the answer.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's an assignment. Do you accept that assignment?
I do. I receive it. Yes.
Love it. And I'll put it out there. And we'll just ask the people too. So we'll see what else they
Yeah.
have to say. And then the final question, because I'll get in trouble if I don't ask this one.
Uh-oh.
You've let me do all the question asking. Do you have any questions for me?
I already asked my question before we came on.
Oh, what did the people hear it? What was the question? Do you
Question.
want the people to hear it?
I don't know. I think you answered it really beautifully and simply. I asked you what do you get out of this? I'm learning how to ask like blunt questions. That might be offensive. What do you get out of this? What are you doing here?
It doesn't
Why did
offend.
you invite me?
Well, I invited quite a number of people, and you were one of the people that said yes. It's a win-win. When I was getting my Hello 7 certification, Disruptor Coaching Conversations was born because I wanted a way to operate in my strengths and a way to serve my other coaching sisters. So that's why coaching is in it. We're going to change the name to Disruptor Conversations more than likely, because it's no longer just the focus on coaching. It's really a way that I could serve others to help them get their voice out, me do something that I love dearly. This is my third podcast. And I love having deep conversations. I love coaching. I am in my bag. This is what I would do for free. This is why I'm here. So it was a way to be able to do that. And then and there's another mastermind that I knew, and when she talked about moving from Instagram to YouTube with my podcast, it took off because I can talk as long as I want. We can get as deep as we want. We can go all in right in this conversation. And
Yeah.
then the people that we're called to serve can find us. I feel like YouTube does that really good for people. We don't have to go looking for them, because you know what? It's a search engine. They're looking for us.
Yeah, yeah. And that long format conversation. I'm so
And
grateful.
it's a win-win.
I feel like I won. Thank you.
I feel like we both won.
I'm so glad to know that you won too. That's why I asked.
Collective care, right?
I love
And
care.
that's who I am, right? I want to have a win-win exchange of energy, wealth, all of the things that you are talking about, right? And I don't have any guilt and shame about that. I'm saying that with my full chest. I came here, I have shit to do.
Yep.
So do you.
I know it. We both do.
Fantastic. Anything you want to say to the people before we go? Any questions that I did not ask that you want to make sure that they know?
I don't think so. Again, I'm grateful, as it's coming up for me, like learning more and more about how to talk about it. I'm really grateful for your platform. I'm grateful for your audience and learning how to come into something, that was calling me, and like to receive the call and be like, all right, I think I'm going to do this. And like, I got to go find my way now.
Well,
So
I'm very proud of you. Thank you for answering the call. Thank you for being vulnerable in this space. Thank you for sharing Christian with us, um, and allowing us to see that part of you for your godson and call his name. We pray before every call that I have with my guests in private. I didn't know that, because it's important to speak his name in the circle, and clearly he was showing up here today.
Oh, he shows up when he's ready to show up. He sure does. He shows up quite a bit, in fact. I had no doubt that he was going to show up.
Well, thank you for being here, Christian. We honor your time in physical realm with us, and we're grateful that your spirit gets to be free. Absolutely. Well, y'all, that's our time.